to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Let's start with the prayers. Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadadi Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shivatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Panchakalpatarubhayasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pesai Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshe Tarine. Hare Krishna devotees. So today we are going to discuss from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 7th chapter, verse number 11. This is the title is Further Inquiries by Vidura. So Vidura is inquiring from Maitreya Muni, and Maitreya Muni is answering. I'll share my screen. I'll read the verse, synonyms, translation, and purport, and then we'll briefly discuss the verse. Yatha jale chandramasah kampadistat krito gunaha drishyate asan api drashtur atmano anatmano gunaha. Yatha jale chandramasah kampadistat krito gunaha drishyate asannapi drashtur atmano anatmano gunaha. Synonyms or the word-to-word meanings. Yatha, as, jale, in the water, chandramasa, of the moon, kampa adi, quivering, etc. Tat kritaha, done by the water. Gunaha, quality. Trishyate, it is so seen. Asan api, without existence. Drashtu, of the seer. Atmanaha, of the self. Anatmanaha, of other than the self. Gunaha, quality. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. As the moon reflected on water appears to the seer to tremble due to being associated with the quality of the water, so the self associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead, is compared to the moon in the sky, and the living entities are compared to the reflection of the moon on water. The moon in the sky is fixed and does not appear to quiver like the moon on the water. Actually, like the original moon in the sky, the moon reflected on the water should also not quiver. But because of being associated with water, the reflection appears to be quivering, although in actual fact, the moon is fixed. The water moves, but the moon does not move. Similarly, the living entities appear to be tainted by material qualities like illusion, lamentation, and miseries, although in the pure soul, such qualities are completely absent. The word pratiyate, which means apparently and not actually, like the experience of having one's head cut off in a dream is significant here. The reflection of the moon on the water is the separated rays of the moon and not the actual moon. The separated parts and parcels of the Lord entangled in the water of material existence have the quivering quality, whereas the Lord is like the actual moon in the sky, which is not at all in touch with water. The light of the sun and moon reflected on matter makes the matter bright and praiseworthy. The living symptoms are compared to the light of the sun and the moon, illuminating material manifestations like trees and mountains. The reflection of the sun or moon is accepted as the real sun or moon by less intelligent men, and the pure monastic philosophy develops from these ideas. In fact, the light of the sun and the moon are actually different from the sun and the moon themselves, although they are always connected. The light of the moon is spread throughout the sky, appears to be impersonal, but the moon planet, as it is personal, and the living entities on the moon planet are also personal. In the rays of the moon, different material entities appear to be comparatively more or less important. The light of the moon on the Taj Mahal appears to be more beautiful than the same light in the wilderness. Although the light of the moon is the same everywhere, due to being differently appreciated, it appears different. Similarly, the light of the Lord is equally distributed everywhere, but due to being differently received, it appears to be different. One should not, therefore, accept the reflection of the moon on the water as actual and understand the whole situation through monastic philosophy. The quivering quality of the moon is also variable. When the water is standing still, there is no quivering. A more settled conditioned soul quivers less, but due to material connection, the quivering quality is more or less present everywhere. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Okay, so we will discuss this verse. This verse is in continuation with the previous verse, and Prabhupada mentions it also here. The previous verse talked about the living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off. And that same thing, Prabhupada mentions that the word pratiyate, which means apparently and not actually, like the experience of having one's head cut off in a dream, is significant here. So just like when someone sees that his head is cut off, what does it mean? Can the head cut off? Yes, head can be cut off, but if the head is cut off, can we see the head being cut off? Because the eyes are part of the head. We can never see, there will never be a situation where we can see the head being cut off. Only situation in which we can see this is in a dream. And that's what is mentioned here. In the text number 10, the living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background like a man who dreams that he has seen, that he sees his head cut off. So now coming to this verse, today's verse, verse number 11. What Maitreya Muni is saying is that as the moon reflected on water appears to the seer to tremble due to being associated with the quality of water, so the self associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter. Very appropriate example here. When we see the moon being reflected on from the lake or some body of water, the moon we see seems to quiver meaning the moon seems to go up and down, move here and there, and that quivering depends on the condition of the water. So if the rain is falling, the vision of the moon is completely distorted because the water is moving too much. If there is wind also together, the quivering is too much. However, if there is no wind and the weather is calm and water is calm, the quivering is still there, but its moon is quite clear, almost same as what we see in the sky. But like Prabhupada says at the end of the purport, that a more settled conditioned soul quivers less, but due to material connection, the quivering quality is more or less present everywhere. Meaning, Prabhupada is saying that we cannot stop the quivering. We are seeing the self through the reflection of matter, and what is that matter? Through the body, through material nature. So when we see a person, we qualify them according to the matter. For example, we see a person is fat or thin, someone is beautiful, someone is ugly, someone is this, someone is that. We give these qualifications to a person. But how are we qualifying that with the person? It is based on their body. There can be bodily beauty, there can be some bodies may be fat, some bodies may be thin, some bodies may be ugly, etc. But what is the person? What is the qualification of the person is the soul. And as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, the soul is constant. The soul does not change, only the matter changes. So it's a Bhagavad Gita 101, chapter 2. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara. The verse says that the body that the soul acquires goes through different stages of changes, but the soul itself does not change. And at the time of death, again, the soul gets a new body. So we are looking through the eyes, when we are looking at the soul through being reflected through the medium of matter, it appears to be fat, ugly, beautiful, etc., thin. And the reason is that we are seeing it through the medium of matter. So our vision, in one sense, is tainted. Similarly, this also applies to, just like this is applying to the soul being reflected in different ways or being looked at in different ways. Similarly, the spiritual activities, if we think about it, are also looked in a different way. For example, when we are engaged in devotional services, some person may be engaged in deity worship, some devotee may be engaged in cooking, somebody may be engaged in singing, kirtan, and yet somebody may be engaged in cleaning or sweeping the floor. But when we, through the ordinary eyes, when we see these activities, the devotional activities, we see them as lower or higher. We grade them. this is a lower service, this is a higher service. And this is again due to seeing it through the vision of matter. When we see it through the vision of matter, because we are bringing the material qualifications into these activities, we see them as lower or higher. For example, in the material world, there are these gradations are there. Varnashram being, even though it is like a spiritual organization of different varnas and ashramas, different classes of people, yet the people have been divided into classes according to their material qualities. The purpose is to progress spiritually, but there are these gradations. So similarly, in our workplace, in our day-to-day life, we see different material activities as different, we grade them as being lower or higher. And because those are lower or higher, they are mostly dependent on the type of work. The more physical work and the less paid it is graded lower. And the more work done through intelligence, through the mind, thoughtfulness, and the more pay it attracts is termed as higher. So because of these gradations, when we come to the temple, we see different services. We again try to see them in that same mentality. Our mind is conditioned to see different things with the matter. Mind is also matter. And therefore, when in the temple or in spiritual activities, we see different activities as lower and higher. However, for Krishna, when somebody is trying to please Krishna, Krishna can be pleased in unlimited ways, in different ways. A person trying to please Krishna by cleaning the temple, by cleaning the dishes, or pot washing, or in other different ways, Krishna is equally pleased with such activity or such service as he may be pleased by deity worship, for example, or temple management. In fact, Krishna may not be pleased with deity worship and temple management if the intention and consciousness is lacking, and he may be pleased more with the temple cleaning or cleaning the pot service when it is done in the right service attitude. So it's the consciousness, it's the attitude that matters. And there's this story is there. We have heard it several times. Like Narada Muni went to two different persons. One is a Brahmana, Pakka Brahmana, and the other one is a cobbler, a Muchi. And both of them asked them that, thank you for visiting us. When you go to visit Narayan, please ask him, when will I go back to him? So Narad Muni goes back and he asks Lord Narayan, and the Lord says that the cobbler, this cobbler's life is the last life and he's coming back to me. For Brahmana though, he will take many more births. He will need many more births. And Narad Muni was surprised. And then he said, okay, why? And then Lord told him that go when you go back, tell them that they will ask that what was Narayan doing, and tell them that the Narayan was trying to put an elephant to the eye of a needle, and you will get your answer. So Narad Muni went, and he went to the Brahmana and told him the same thing. The Brahmana immediately became furious and said that that impossible. How can someone put an elephant to the eye of a needle? You are just making up things. I don't even think that you went and visited the Lord. You are making up. I don't believe in you. He goes to the cobbler, and cobbler also has the same thing. And then Narayan said that when he went, he was trying to put the elephant to the eye of a needle, and the cobbler had no limit to his joys. He started laughing and rolling on the ground with ecstasy. He said that, "Oh, please tell me more, please tell me more." The Lord is unlimited and he can do anything. What, trying to put an elephant to the eye of a needle, that's nothing for him. He can do much more unimaginable things. That is my Lord. So Narad Muni gets the idea. And we also, in context to this verse, we understand that it is the consciousness of a person that matters. Now, again, coming back to this verse, there is in the second chapter, the Vyavasatmika Buddhi verse, it says that Bhoga and Aishwara. The verse is Bhogaishwara Prasaktanam Taya Prita Chetasam Vyavasatmika Buddhi Samadhau Na Vidhiyate. The translation is, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So what are the cause? In this verse, it is mentioned that Bhoga, the desire for Bhoga, and Aishwarya. Bhoga means desire for material enjoyment, and Aishwarya means desire for material opulence. Both of these are material in nature. And when we have these desires, the quivering of the lake or the vision trying to see the soul through the body is more, and therefore we cannot see the soul proper or the spirit in its proper respect, in its as it is, basically. Now, the last part is that Srila Prabhupada says in the last sentences. In fact, there are two more points. Another point is that Prabhupada brings up the impersonalism and how he connects this verse with impersonalism, because we try to see through the vision or reflection through the matter, we see the Lord as impersonal, because the rays are impersonal and we equate the rays to being equal to that person. And because of that, we see the Lord also as impersonal. This is, for me, that was an amazing comparison or amazing way to explain why the impersonalists see the Lord as impersonal. And the last point is that at the end, he says that the quivering quality of the moon is also variable. When the water is standing still, there is no quivering. A more settled condition soul quivers less, but due to material connection, the quivering quality is more or less present everywhere. So as long as we have this body, the quivering will be there. The only thing that we can do is reduce the quivering by progressing in our spiritual journey, by progressing more and more in our spiritual path. For example, if we are at the surface of an ocean, we will go up and down, blub, 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 blub a lot. But the deeper we go, the more stable we get. Similarly, and this is the example given from Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami, the more Sthita Prajna we try to become, the more fixed in our devotional service we try to become, the lesser the quivering. However, the quivering cannot be stopped because the body is made up of these three doshas. It is mentioned that the body has this kapha, pitta, vata, and they are called dosha. Doshas means fault. And only thing that we can do is reduce these faults. And because they are there, the quivering will be there, because we will be using our eyes and the mind to see. but that quivering can be made significantly less as we get more and more on the spiritual platform. So quickly summarizing, Prabhupada, in continuation with the previous verse, this verse is also continuing on the actual vision of the soul. Just like in a dream, one cannot see one's head being cut. Only in a dream can one see his head being cut off. It's not a reality. So similarly here also, the Maitreya Muni is continuing that the vision that we see is always through the reflection of matter. Just like the moon, when seen through the reflection of the water, always quivers. Similarly, when we see the person through the eyes or through the layer of matter, we don't see the actual soul. And then we discussed about how we see different persons as fat, thin, ugly, beautiful, but all of this is due to the wrong vision, seeing through the means of matter. We also talked about the spiritual activity. Similarly, the spiritual activities can also be seen through the reflection of matter. And because of that, we see gradations of services, although in reality, all spiritual services are equal. And then we discussed how Prabhupada is equating or gives the reason why the impersonalists see the Lord as impersonal, because they are seeing the Lord through the vision of their material senses. And finally, we discussed that this particular vision cannot be completely given up. There will be some quivering, but we can diminish the quivering to a significant extent by elevating ourselves or fixing ourselves in spiritual consciousness. So I'll stop here and invite any discussions, if any. Otherwise, I have a hard stop soon.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept mine too. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
A wonderful class, Prabhuji. Particularly, yesterday we were reading a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, and then there was the same question about quivering, but it was presented in a different way. Prabhupada clearly states in that purport that if you are not in Krishna consciousness, then you will not be able to focus on any single subject matter. And actually, this verse that you explained today answers that question. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, we will end here. Thank you for joining. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.